Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call roll, please?
Councillor Bolin?
Here.
Councillor Grizzle?
Here.
Councillor Steinhagel?
Here.
Councillor Stouter, sorry.
Here.
Councillor Furlow?
Here.
And Councillor Reeskamp.
Here.
Thank you. First up, we have the approval of council minutes from January 9th, 2019. Are there any additions or corrections?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the council minutes from January 9th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes are approved. Consent calendar has been amended, and we have tonight the agenda. We have the board minutes from the Library Advisory Committee, Trees and Trails Advisory Committee. We have an easement, public access utility easement, corner of Gilbert Street and River Road. Liquor license, Lebanon Elks Lodge, 41 West Maple Street. J&C Barbecue Catering, 940 South Main Street. And I don't know how to pronounce it.
Wanted you to pronounce that.
Pirana on 590 Tangent Street.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the amended consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent calendar is approved. First up, we have presentations. We have a jail risk management assessment report presented by Kirk Sanphilip.
He'll get you.
Filippo.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Dave Nelson. I work for City County Insurance Services, CIS, Public Safety, Risk Management.
Is it red?
It's red now.
There we go.
Dave Nelson from City County Insurance Services, CIS. I'm the Public Safety Risk Management Officer. And I don't know if you need our address, but we're 1212 Court Street in Salem. And with me today is Kirk Sanfilippo. Did you want to do any introductions?
Kirk Sanfilippo, Mayor, council members, city manager with CIS, Law Enforcement Risk Management.
So tonight what we're going to talk about is, specifically Kirk is going to talk about the jail assessment that we conducted at the Lebanon Police Department. But I wanted to kind of give you a brief overview of the program. This is a new program for us. It's been about 18 months. And it came to us from one of our Board of Trustees, Ralph Wyatt. He's administrator for Lynn County. And in our January 2017 board meeting, he suggested that we hire somebody to focus on corrections. Our corrections claims around the state have been skyrocketing. Primarily, we've had a significant increase in custody deaths due to heroin and overdoses of different kinds, fentanyl, alcohol-related deaths, suicide deaths. And so because of those claims, we decided to bring somebody in to focus specifically on corrections. And so we developed what we called a best practice survey. We brought in a jail consultant to help develop that. And ultimately, we hired Kirk from the city of Sutherland, and he's been out in the last 18 months conducting jail best practice assessments. In our CIS pool, which you're obviously a member of, we have 22 jails, county jails in our pool, and we have about 10 municipal jails in our pool. And so far, I think here at about 18 county jails and 6 city jails, I think, is where we're at so far. So that's just, I wanted to give you kind of a brief overview of the program and how we kind of got here. This was kind of modeled after our hire to retire program when we started to see a significant increase in our employment claims, and we hired employment consultants to work with our members on HR related issues. So we kind of got a control of the employment claims, and then corrections claims started taking that place. So corrections claims are about 25% of our overall liability exposure right now, and so we have a significant focus on it. So that's just a quick overview. I was going to turn it over to Kirk and let him talk about the specifics, the findings that we came across with your jail, and we'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards.
So thank you again for inviting us to be here. And by way of background, I actually started my career many years ago, 39 years ago, in the jail system working as a deputy, and worked a variety of positions in the jail, and then transitioned and moved on to several public safety agencies where we were cross-trained as police officers and firefighters, and concluded my career as the chief of Sutherland Police Department. And my interest in this field is, overall, from a public safety standpoint, life is important to us. We exist to protect and serve and prevent people's injury and death. And we had a pretty high rate of deaths in our jail systems in Oregon. So coming into this, really I was looking for about really 4 things, although we get down into a lot of specifics with the jail assessment. But really it comes down to leadership of the organization, culture of the organization, training in the organization, and ultimately whether or not equipment and infrastructure is being maintained appropriately. So after doing 23 of these, I have pretty good insight about what's happening around the state of Oregon in some of these fields. And I want to highlight, when you come to the Lebanon Police Department, and we're talking to Chief Stevenson and Lieutenant Bressler, you've got excellent leadership here. The culture appears very constructive and very healthy based on everything that I was able to see and the people I was able to talk with. You've got a wonderful social media presence which sends a message to the community that your police department and your jail system is important and it's of value to the city. The equipment is contemporary, it's very well maintained, training is well documented, it's current and it's contemporary. The organizational effectiveness demonstrated is long-term visioning, which is excellent. And not only do you have one full-time person assigned to the jail, but you're about to transition to 2 full-time people, which is more of an investment than any other municipal jail that we're seeing in the state of Oregon, which is outstanding. Your professional standards are well maintained, so the chief does a good job of holding staff accountable, but also ensuring that policy and procedures current, training's up to date, and he has the best equipment possible for his officers. This municipal jail is the only one in the state of Oregon that took the time back in 2009 when you opened it to engage the Oregon State Sheriff's Association and get a copy of their Oregon jail standards. Now that's a pretty big deal because that's really the standard set in the state of Oregon for county jails, and none of the other municipal jails have done that even to date. So even your past chief is to be complimented for having that insight and that visioning back in 2009. We even go down as far as looking at your contracts that you have for your food services, for other law enforcement agencies that have inmates in your jail, and including how the officers' report writing is when it comes to use of force reports. And after reviewing 5 of those, the officers do a great job of documentation, very professional, very thorough, and actually very well written. Now, with all that said, there are still things that could improve in any of the jails in the state of Oregon. I'm just going to highlight 5 of those so that when and if time comes for the chief to come to you during the budget portion of your planning, you're not surprised. Now, one that has no budget cost, but it's incredibly important, we go back to culture, and that's to create a culture where all of the officers see themselves as good risk managers. And when there are exposures, vulnerabilities, gaps in safety within your jail, the officers feel comfortable and safe to go to the chief or the lieutenant and say, we've got an issue with X and we really need to look at whatever that is. The second thing that I want to point out is continue to professionalize and standardize administrative investigations within the agency so that there's good ongoing self-examination of the type of work and the type of conduct that's going on in the jail. Continue to partner with the Oregon State Sheriff's Association. Make sure that the jail commander, Lieutenant Bressler, or his replacement ultimately gets to good, solid training from a jail command standpoint. Supervision and surveillance. Having 2 officers staffed in the jail is excellent. We're really looking for the municipal jails in the state of Oregon to have 24-hour day, 7-day a week, 365-day a week coverage in the jail, which means a jail correctional officer / police officer, however you staff that, in the jail around the clock, so that there's never an inmate in there without a jail correctional officer present as well. The standard used to be we would have sight and sound coverage, dispatch would be monitoring and watching, but anytime you have somebody watching a monitor, there's always the possibility of a gap or a lapse. That's why having somebody physically in the jail becomes so important. Medical and mental health issues, as Dave explained, suicides are problematic in the jail systems. Medical crises, specifically drug and alcohol withdrawals, are very critical, not to mention just natural medical health issues that some of the inmates come into the jail system with. They're unhealthy by nature, and they need good medical coverage. So we are asking for the jails to look at staffing medical 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, ideally by way of a contract, and that becomes pretty expensive as well. I want to conclude with the fact, at the very minimum, CIS asks for the jails in Oregon to have an RN or an MD on site a minimum of 4 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, with a callback of 20 minutes or less, given that somebody's needed in the jail by way of RN or MD status. So at the very least, 4 hours a day, every day of the week, every year. So that really concludes any sort of formalized presentation that we had. Dave and or I am here to answer any questions that council may have or the city manager may have.
What is our staffing right now for RN at this point, or MD, or what we have?
Currently, we are contracting with 2 nurses, and Dr. Pham oversees those 2 nurses through. So it's more of an on-call basis. Yeah. And they do come visit when we know we're going to have an inmate staying longer than 14 days. They'll come in and do an assessment on that.
Okay, thank you.
I just wondered how many of the county jails have that medical standard?
Many of them have a 4-hour-a-day standard. Some of them have, and I'm going to, 8 to 10 have 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week coverage with contract medical, but not all 22 of them do. And we're trying to move the county jails into that same direction. Some of the challenges that the state of Oregon is facing is expense to contract that kind of medical service is one. Second is, even if you have the money, the county comes up with the money, RNs are not to be found in all parts of Oregon to be able to be employed to be able to do that kind of work. Our severe shortage of RNs in the state of Oregon when it comes to this kind of work.
And many of the RNs enter their medical career aspiring to work in a jail. And so when they get an offer to work in a hospital or a clinic that typically will pay more, they certainly will take those opportunities and leave the county or the city with additional vacancies. And it's difficult across the state, even for the contract medical, to hire RNs to service the county's jails and municipal jails.
Is there any movement on the part of the nursing schools to have some education in jail, prison nursing, so to speak?
We've asked ourselves that very same question, sir, and we don't know the answer to that. I don't know what the nursing schools are doing.
Many of the nurses, because part of the assessment that I do is I walk around and I'll talk with inmates, I'll talk with staff, and I'll talk with the contract or the on-staff nurses, and I'll ask them, why are you working in the jail? And many of them started in the jail when they were brand new. They couldn't find another nursing job. It's been 7 or 8 years. Nursing jobs were hard to find 7 or 8 years ago. They ended up working with the correctional staff, and they like the staff, they like the culture, they like the environment, they stay. Some of them will tell you, I came into it as a service position, and what better place to provide service to a needed population than in a jail. So some of them have a mindset of it's more of a calling to them. Some of them started there because there was no other job, and they just found that they really loved it once they got involved with the staff. So. Now, I'm sorry, go ahead, Counsel.
Well, actually, I read through your report, and I've had, up close and personal experience with a neighboring jail, and I recently, through a leadership class, got a tour of our jail here, and I'm very, very impressive here.
It is.
And so then to have, superficially be able to see that, and just to see the differences in the technology. One, I'm glad that we have another person to help, Officer Lynn out there. But to read your report, to basically bolster everything that I was able to see, and that we really do, we have a great facility, and that's obviously at the credit of the staff and working there. So it was nice to be able to read that and kind of sort of confirm what I had already seen.
And it's absolutely true. Dave and Lynn McNamara, our executive director, they hired me to come in and be honest and in some cases confront issues that I see in our jail systems. I'm not personal friends with Chief Stevenson. I think he does a wonderful job, but if it were different, I would tell you that it's different than what I'm seeing, but it's very positive here in your jail system.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it is very thorough and well-written report. Thank you for that.
Going back to the medical need, kind of the hot thing right now in the fire service is, from a community risk reduction standpoint, is community paramedicine. Is that something where you think there's a potential for that? Or is an RN the absolute bar, and a paramedic or community paramedic would not suffice in that scenario?
Yeah, we've looked at that, council member, and not only do I do these risk assessments, I go back to cases that we had claims with, cases we've litigated. You go back 5 years, and it's about a $20 million price tag to the membership of CIS with these jail injuries, deaths primarily. We look at what kind of medical staff was on site, what decisions were made, and we've kind of set the standard at an RN level. Now, is there a place for paramedics to supplement? Of course, always. But at the very minimum, an RN. And as I spoke with the chief and Lieutenant Bressler about, if you can't have an RN on site right away, 4 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, at the very least, if an inmate's coming in and they're going to be in your custody for 24 hours or more, at the very least, get them to a medical facility, get a basic medical review done of that person, let them talk with a medical person. They may share mental health or medical issues that they've got with somebody in the medical field that they won't share with law enforcement, because law enforcement's not seen the same way medical staff is seen. And if there is an issue, a critical issue, a crisis looming, better to know it up front so that medical can try to deal with it before they're in custody for a day or 2 or 3, because the serious injuries and deaths in the jails are very expensive.
Any other questions?
No, it was a great report.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for the invitation.
Thank you. Next up, Chamber of Commerce Annual Tourism Transient Room Tax Report. Shelley Garrett from the Chamber. Yes.
I did not.
That should speak for itself.
I didn't get one.
All right, Mary will deliver you special bags tomorrow.
There was no Valentine in there.
There was. You're right. Is this? I don't think it's on. But yeah, you can hear me good. So I wanted to show you those because that was a result of the mission challenge that Gary gave us several years ago, and one of the things that was on the list was to create some kind of a welcome to the community. And we put together this welcome new neighbor bag. And we like it, and it's becoming more and more popular. People that live in Lebanon are invited to put coupons or little doohickeys in it that'll make people come by their business and check it out. They don't have to be chamber members. They do have to pay $25 because we have 25 bags we stuff, and that sort of offsets the cost. So it's becoming more popular. We're getting more requests for it. I brought our book. I decided when we started doing this, we need to keep track of how many people we give it to, because you guys are going to ask me. Robert will ask, I can tell you that. So each year we add more and more people to it. So it's not just known because we do some radio advertising telling them to come in and pick it up, and we also advertise in Scotty's Lebanon local. but also people are talking about it between themselves because they know that when you're new to town, you get this. So it's really just a demonstration of how friendly Lebanon is to get something like this. So you have the presentation, and it's very similar to last year and the year before. And I wanted you to know that this is a group of for the new city council members, the people that do the decisions are a group of citizens that we try to get that represent different parts of the community that review each grant request. And we were given back when, let's see, Rebecca's so old, she probably remembers, you were probably on the board, or Wayne, who's really quite young, was probably on the board when you guys asked us to do this. And Ron Miller said to me, he said, I want to make sure that the Cheetah Lake process is still honored like we have always honored it, which is why you'll see the larger payments through to bill on that infrastructure. And it's proven to be a very good investment because you've got more and more events happening out there. You've got the Guitars Under the Stars guys out there. They're going to use the facilities. There's all kinds of people using the facilities. So it's been a very good investment, and we'll continue to do so.
And I want to say I really appreciate this because when I first started on council, people were coming individually, and we would spend a lot of time during each council meeting going over who would get what amount of money. And I'm like, we are not a tourism committee. We're not a good body to come to say who should get money and who shouldn't, which thing is more important and what thing brings the number of people. You guys do it, and you guys really have done a great job. I've loved that not being on our plate.
Well, that's nice, and the group, the citizens, do a good job.
Yeah.
So this sheet right here, I think, is probably the most important to you, because back when Gary and I were still in high school, but Rebecca was probably on city council, this is the goals that they set up. I'm setting you up to get into big trouble, but I'm not afraid of her, because what's to be afraid of? They have... They've divided up special events, sports events, special projects, and tourism connection, and they assigned it a value. We were never going to be able to stick with it exactly, but they wanted us to shoot for that. And we have always tried to do that so that we made sure we had enough that was going into the right things that they had originally directed us. And you can see we're very close. The special events, the goal is 25%. We came in at 22%. Sports events, the goal is 25%. We came in at 23%. Special projects was 40%. We came in at 43%. And the tourism connection is supposed to be 10%. We came in at 12%. So you can see that we're in the ballpark, and we continue to be good stewards of your money. And then you can read the rest. If you have questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them. But I just wanted you to sort of get an idea of how we're utilizing that money and adding new things each year, which is encouraging people to have events. So, but we get a lot of requests, so we've got to be fair and equitable in how it gets distributed, so we have enough for everyone to have seed money.
One of the questions I had is your request rapidly increasing, or is it leveled out? Or
it's not rapidly increasing, but we're getting more requests, and so that's a good thing. We kind of tried to market so that people know that it was available. I think that it was the best kept secret in town for a while, and we didn't want that to be the case. We wanted them to utilize this money, so we've tried to be better about making sure that everybody knew about it and talking about it more and showing that things had tourism funding behind them. So we have seen an increase, but not rapid, no.
Is the process still the same than when I was on the board? The tourism committee reviews?
Yes.
And then you take it to your board?
Then I take it to my board. So the tourism committee makes a recommendation, and then I take it to my board for a final vote. They've only turned it down one time that the recommendation wasn't followed, and I think that any of you that sit on a board know that if you have people that you have asked to give you their opinion and work hard on this, if you don't listen to what they're saying, then you're wasting their time. I think that's my opinion anyway. But they normally follow the recommendation of the committee, and it's never been unreasonable. And we've had some pretty intense conversations. They're not always real easy. They're not slam dunks at all.
I'll ask my question I ask every year because I always like to know, how is the Saturdays going? As far as, are we getting more people in? Is it
A little bit
still
more
pretty
than
good
we
traffic?
used to, yeah. Not in the winter,
Sure,
but in the summertime, they know we're open. They like the fact that it's very convenient, and we've got some different signage out there, so hopefully they know that helps too. So we're seeing a little bit of an increase. And we're passing, it is a very lot of tourism that we're going out with people that are passing through. They want to know what stuff to do. Is there a winery around, or where's the best place to eat, or can they go fishing, can they go hiking? So it's the kind of tourism questions that you want to have on a Saturday.
Good.
Mary, make a note, he always asks that question, so we have that answer next time.
I'm just going to use this opportunity, not really in my official capacity, but in my capacity as helping put in for grants for various youth sporting activities to help with marketing for tournaments and different things. And the help that we've got from the Chamber has been absolutely instrumental in some of the things that we've done as far as bringing in various tournaments, both a basketball tournament last year that was incredibly well attended, baseball tournaments on a yearly basis for the last several years. And, I've tried to do kind of an informal survey after these types of tournaments where I go and I talk to some of the restaurants owners that I know. I talk to the owner of the Knott Home Market. The Knott Home Market owner says that, when we have that state baseball tournament that we have, other than the weekend of Strawberry Festival, it's his busiest weekend of the year. In fact, he's made a note that he buys like 2 extra cases of sunflower seeds for that weekend, because for like 4 years in a row they ran out of sunflower seeds. So they try to stock enough sunflower seeds now. And then the restaurants say the same thing. It said, it's amazing how many kids come in with their, because they got the kids with their baseball uniforms and all this kind of stuff. I'd like to say when I talk to a lot of the participants and their families that they're staying locally. The problem is they're not, because the hotel's already full. And that's what they say. They call in, because a lot of these teams don't know they're coming until a couple weeks before the tournament, for example, the state tournament, and they're already full. So, if there's a need out there, it's a need for another hotel. But I want to say thank you. It's been terrific working with you, so thank you.
And see, that fulfilled one of the needs we needed to make on our bubble, because we needed more sports stuff, because that's what the original city council wanted. So you met our needs to make them happier too. So, and or maybe you don't know, the money that this comes from the hotel taxes, the transient room taxes. That's where it comes from. So if we don't have anyone coming and staying in Lebanon, and it also is with the RV parks and stuff, if nobody comes here, we're not going to have any tourism. So
please know that I'm going to be coming to you to help you more here in the very near future.
I always know I'm going to see you again. And we actually do want to promote those events because they're good for the community. So
That train was Karma.
Yeah.
That train was called Karma.
it was probably built the same year you were born too, probably.
Any other questions? With that, thank you, Shelley. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much. And thanks for trusting us with your money. We'll
Absolutely.
continue to do a good job.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up, a proposal for a children's meeting room addition to the library, presented by Library Director Kendra.
Good evening, everyone. Let's see if I can get this started. There we go.
Why don't you give it just a second till that train finishes up?
Oh,
That was her bad karma, not yours.
Yeah. There we go. Go ahead.
okay, good to go?
Yep. Thank you, Kendra.
So as usual, there was lots of info in your packet. I'm going to reiterate a few of the high points from my staff memo and show you what I hope are some very compelling images. If you were on the city facilities tour prior to the election, you heard me talk about this goal. Tonight's a step toward making it a reality. So with that, I know you're all aware of our population increase. It's incremental and it's manageable, but in this last decade, we're up by 9%. We're definitely seeing lots of new young families at the library. So we have 2 weekly story times, and we have partnerships with Head Start and the LHS parenting class. So in any given month, we can have 15 or more story times. And if we follow the trend, we should be adding an evening and possibly bilingual story time. I think the first one we would go with is an evening story time. We get a lot of requests from working parents that want to be able to bring their kids to story time. So that would be the next thing we would try to do. And story times are important. That cannot be overstated. They promote early literacy. They attract young families. If you guys spend any time online at all, I'm sure you've seen where someone new to town will go online and they're a young parent and they'll say, I just moved here, I'm looking for things to do with my kids. And I'm always very gratified to see that someone out there always suggests the library and all of our programs, not just story time, but all the programs that we offer. So this graphic is, this illustrates the attendance, and it's amazing. So this is just this past January. I'm sorry that graphic isn't really easy to see. So the first story time in January, there were 35 preschoolers and 23 adults. There was not a single story time where there were less than 50 attendees. And the largest one of the month, there were 40 preschoolers and 25 adults. So 65 individuals there. And then on the baby and me story time, same thing. There was not a single story time where there was under 50. At the biggest one of the month, there were 38 babies and 27 adults. So very happy with the attendance. But having said that, imagine you're on the adult public access computer trying to do your taxes, and 65 voices are singing Itsy Bitsy Spider. It can be a little difficult. So this is just a sample month, a random one that I chose because there was a lot of activity. But in May of 2018, there were 5 preschool story times, 5 baby and me story times, 4 Head Start story times, 2 LHS story times, and 2 class field trips. And I don't want to be disingenuous. I need to tell you that some of the Head Start story times happen in the morning before we open. And the LHS story times are on a hiatus right now because Diane Lamb retired, but the intention is to get those up and going again. So this is where story time happens. It's approximately 350 square feet. At the end of the picture there's a short hallway. That's where the family restroom is, the staff workroom, and a staff storage room. It's quite possible that we have less space in the new library than we did in the old library. If you guys were in the old library, that back room where we did story time back then, I don't know that it was less square footage per se, but it was laid out in a more conducive format. The way this format is, you've got the hallway leading to things, and you've got the bookshelves. So it doesn't lend itself very well. And then, of course, it's quite open to the rest of the library. So that's where the noise issues come in. So this is that same space just a few weeks ago with 37 babies and 26 adults. You can see how packed it is in there. And you can just imagine how noisy it is. This is that same room with the side view, and those short aisles between the stacks, that's an industry term. You guys would say bookshelves. The aisles between the stacks also become congested. So there's just no way to get anywhere in the children's area during a story time. And of course, with children, you have their paraphernalia, so that clogs up the rest of the bookshelves. So issues with the current space: it's inadequate in size, noises are distracting to other patrons, it limits access to the stacks for patrons and shelvers, it limits access to the children's office, storage room, and family bathroom. There's no room for crafts or activities. So after story time, those 50 to 60 people, it's just a mass exodus, sort of organized chaos, where they leave the storytime room and head into the community meeting room. Also very noisy and disruptive. And then that means the community meeting room isn't available for rental space. So that's two bad things. So goals for the new space. We know we would want approximately 500 square feet. That's based on information from the National Institute of Building Sciences that says the square footage needed in meeting rooms targeted for children's activities requires 10 square feet per seat. We would like seating for adults around the perimeter. We want it to be soundproof. We want plenty of windows, so if you step out with a cranky baby, you can still see your preschooler inside. We want room for strollers to be parked. We want it to be a multi-purpose space, so the room could lend itself to other things, not just story time, but we could do after-school programs for elementary school kids and teen programming, which is something we'd really like to do more of. Crafts, book clubs, gaming. Brent tells me that 3D computer prices are going down, so maybe someday we could have a 3D printer. And then we want to build this space where the current patio is, but we do want to relocate the patio because we do use it in the summertime, and patrons use it. It's a nice space out there. This is the inspiration space that I showed the architects. I scoured the internet. I looked at a lot of stuff, and we also talked with a lot of libraries throughout the state and asked what you like and not like about your space. This had a lot of neat things. It's a self-contained room. The seating around the perimeter, that little feature wall there where the presenter would stand. Those are all good things. So this is an aerial view of the architect's concept. That lower portion of the screen. Oh, here I'll use my pointer. There we go. So that little room there. It's sort of a buffer zone. It serves several purposes. One, it's stroller parking. Two, it's sort of a noise mitigation space between the library and the actual activity room. And three, there's a door that leads outside to the patio. I didn't want the only entrance to the patio to be from within the room itself. So that little space serves several purposes. It's about 220 square feet. And then the actual room itself is 526 square feet. And you'll notice it's got its own little feature wall there where the presenter would stand. That serves a dual purpose, and the train is really going to help illustrate my point. I have been outside on the patio during story time in the summer. We do story time out there, and a train goes by. You lose the focus of every preschooler if there's a train, and you do not get it back. So that wall will block the train, so that's an added bonus there. Next image. This is from within the library where we currently have story time, looking through the little buffer zone space into the room itself. And then you can see beyond that, we'll still be able to see straight across to the senior center. So it maintains that campus-like feel that we have between the city facilities. I think that's important. And I'll just draw attention to the ceiling there, that wood ceiling. I'll come back to that. This is from within the room itself, looking into the library. And this is from within the room, standing in front of that feature wall, looking into the newly relocated patio. This is the outside facade. And just to orient yourself, that top image is what you'd see if you were standing at the senior center looking over at the library. And the bottom image is if you were at the Justice Center looking over. And this is the addition right here. Okay, now bear with me. Don't get sticker shock because I can talk this around. So a third-party cost consultant, a Portland-based cost consultant, that's important to note, estimated that it would cost $616,000 to build this room. Now, keep in mind, he's in Portland. It's possible that that's slightly inflated because it costs more to do business up there. But also, we can break that cost down into above-the-line and below-the-line costs. Above-the-line costs refer to the framing, the roof, the HVAC, the electrical, the doors, the windows, the carpets, the blinds. Everything was included in that, and it came in at $343,000. $30,000 of that was that wood ceiling. So that's an example of value engineering right there. We don't need a $30,000 wood ceiling. There's a lot of things we could do to bring the actual cost of the room itself down. The below-the-line costs refer to things like site demo, landscaping, sewer, pouring a new concrete pad for the relocated patio. That came in at $85,000. Those are things that our city maintenance crews do and do well on a regular basis. So it's quite possible they could do a lot of that, and we could save quite a bit there. And then the third part of the below-the-line costs are things like contingencies, market fluctuation, contractor overhead. That was $188,000. If we are our own general contractor, we can cut out a lot of that, sub what we need. It's just a room. It's not going to be that difficult. Jason has looked into this. He's been at all the meetings with us, Jason Williams. He feels pretty confident that they can do a lot of this stuff. So, but to do that, we need the drawings. The cost for the drawings is $94,100. I have a third of that left in the Harriman Trust. This will zero it out, and that'll make Matt happy because it'll be one less trust to take care of. So I'm looking for the additional $63,000 that would need to come from the general fund contingency. Would you like to see any of those pictures again? And do you have questions for me?
What is your timeline? I mean, it would be nice to run this by the budget committee that we're on the verge of.
You mean as far as the price that they've told us for the blueprints? So how long is that price good for? Or what is our timeline as far as when you would construct it?
I guess both.
Probably both.
Yeah. I did ask because when they sent me the bid, it had a date on it, and I said, we're probably not going to meet this, and he said, don't worry about it. So I think the cost would remain fairly static regardless of when we get around to it. It's important to note these are the same architects that designed the library. In fact, the exact same architect, Richard Grace, who designed our building, is the one who designed this room. So it's kind of like he's adding on to his baby, I think he was excited to do the room, and I think the price for the prints will remain the same. And then we won't really have a timeline. If we buy these prints ourselves, if we own them outright, they don't have a shelf life. We'll just have them, and we'll start a capital campaign, and we won't build until we can afford to build.
I guess after you share some numbers with us, I'm concerned that you're not looking big enough for that room.
That's possible too, but then at a certain point, you can only deal with so many preschoolers at a time, At a certain point, we may just have to say we're going to split this and have 2 story times a week or something like that. There's only one person doing the story time, so we can't have a stadium-sized story time.
No, but you have many more hours in a day that you can have one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we could do separate story times. Yes, yeah.
I do like the.
If I saw that correctly, there's sliding glass doors lead out into the other section, so you can, in theory, make the space larger.
Yes.
So I like that a lot.
Yep, those doors would slide all the way up. Yes. Yep.
I love it. I would just have it be prioritized with everything else. I mean, we've invested a lot in the library. I love our library. I don't remember the last time we really put an investment like this into, conceptually what's happening in the senior center. I would just like to take this kind of project in context with everything else. I think that's a good facilities discussion. I know we're on the verge of having an overall facilities discussion and a budgetary discussion. So
that was also kind of my first thought was, do we go the route of dipping into contingency current fiscal year, or do we go the route of budgeting for this in the process? And again, I guess prioritizing it for budget. So
yeah, it's February. We're pretty much in that season. We're there. So,
but then again, now we're pushing into July, and your timeline for construction, it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to get drawings. It's going to take, they're going to be into the fall or into the winter when construction time comes, so time becomes an issue too.
Well, if we're also talking about if you're also talking about a campaign for this, we're not most likely looking at this for next year. Am I correct?
Right, correct,
Okay.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but the money for the drawings
Correct.
now,
Mm.
and then capital campaigns in this area could be quick, or they could be long. It depends, but.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I'm heartened by the fact how much money was raised for the skate park.
Yes.
That was pretty amazing. And even the dog park, there wasn't raising quite as much, but that happened fairly quickly. Children are as equally as adorable as dogs, so.
I disagree.
Yeah.
But
some children. Some children.
No. Just kidding for you kids in the audience.
My kids go to the library, just so we're clear.
Oh, your kids are adorable.
Agreed.
But when you were talking about that, I wondered about like sponsorship opportunities for
Yes.
your story times. I kept looking at the kids in the audience, thinking of dollar signs and little kids' accounts, and thinking,
Yeah.
So anyway,
I would certainly make myself available to every civic organization. I mean, I would, and there's still grants we can apply for. Grants typically exclude blueprints. That's why that's really not an option. Every grant I've looked at specifically excludes construction plans.
Yeah, and a lot of them won't do brick and mortar either.
So.
I might have missed it, but have you guys tried story time in the current multipurpose room, and how did that go? Or?
We haven't, for a couple of reasons. For one, it's a rental space, and we don't want to monopolize it. I mean, we do use it for our own, but it's something that we offered to the voters when we went out for the bond. We said, there is no community meeting room. We'll have this. It'll be part of the construction. We don't want to monopolize it too much. It's also an adult-sized room. It's very cold and sterile. Doesn't really lend itself to a cute, quaint story time. There's no books, for one thing. It's just not what we want to do.
Gary, go ahead.
Yeah. So, there's no right or wrong if we want to move forward now with doing the plans or wait until later. The only thought that I would contribute to why we're bringing it to you now is that we have the money available in our contingency fund. We know that construction costs have been escalating rather rapidly in the state of Oregon for a while now. So anything that delays us ultimately does drive up the price of the building itself. We're well over half the way through our fiscal year. We've not really dove into the contingency a lot. There was a small amount that the council transferred out. I can't recall what that was. But we're in good shape in the contingency. And next budget year, we're confronting some expenses we don't have this year. So the competition for dollars is going to be tighter next year with the PERS debacle that we have to, thank you, state, that we have to deal with this coming budget year. So that's why I think myself and some of the others on the staff thought, well, let's take it to the council now. If there's interest in moving this thing forward now, we certainly can do that, and we might preserve our position a little bit better to keep construction costs lower if we're able to build in a reasonable amount of time.
What's our contingency percentage now, and what does this do to us if we were to do this? Matt?
Did you want to weigh on that?
I think we're way ahead in our goal percentage.
We're about to find out.
So in our budget this last year, we had put into contingency between working contingency and then other contingency. I believe it was 18%. Once the numbers from the year before actually shifted out, we had probably about $600,000 more than kind of the amount that we put in contingency, just from budgeting positions that either didn't get filled during the year or got filled during part of the year. Others became vacant. We had some leftover amounts that we could use to do that. We kind of see these situations year to year depending on how things fall. I mean, we budget for positions. If they're full for the year, we don't have as much extra. But based on the council goal of having, I believe it was a 15 and a 2% to 17 or 18%.
17 and 2.
17 and 2. So 19%. We've met that. We'll meet it again this next year. My concern with all of this is really just looking at what the city wants to do going forward. Looking at, is this the avenue that we want to spend the money on? There is the money to do it if that's what council chooses to do.
So if we're above, does this drop us below our goal levels, or
no?
Still be above?
No. Yeah.
Personally, I like the idea of owning our own plans. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when all this was first getting designed, there was like a pavilion that was supposed to connect one to the other, wasn't there? Like from the library to
a
the
walkway or something.
Yeah, something that was like big and
Yeah.
well, this is like the biggest design, right? And then due to cost, hey, we can't afford that, so let's not
Things,
do that.
yeah,
Just
a
kinda,
lot of things got whittled down.
Yeah. And so I think we were being very fiscally responsible at the time. So this to me just kind of starts, now we have an opportunity to sort of expand the library and make this look, this community feeling of, this is our center here, that whole plaza with the nice, what do you call that round thing?
Gazebo.
Yes,
Gazebo.
the beautiful gazebo.
I forget that word all the time,
It's kind of
too.
our center point of our town. So,
But if we-
I like the idea.
But if we go out and spend contingency to do the drawings, do we want to stop right there? Or do we start putting out bids for construction?
I don't think you have to stop until you can fund it, right?
But the plan is not for us to fund it, fund the rest of it. The plan, you're asking us for 63,000, you'll pretty much take care of the rest.
Our thought was,
That's on you.
Our thought was to get the designs.
That makes me nervous.
See how much we can do in the value engineering side, and then therefore get to a pretty firm number of what it's going to cost.
Yes.
At that point, then we on staff would need to assess what does that mean to our finances, what could we possibly afford and recommend to the council. Who knows, maybe it's something we could move on more rapidly than we think right now, or maybe not. But I don't think we have enough information until we do the plans and until our staff can weigh in and see what parts of this project can we do. I'll remind the council that this is something that I think our crews are getting pretty good at. We value engineered Strawberry Plaza. We're doing the same thing with the community garden, and we know for a fact that we're saving a whole lot of money on we did on Strawberry Plaza, and we're busy doing that right now on the community garden. So I think this is something we have some experience at, but until we get those plans in hand and then be able to start working them the way that our folks can, we really don't know what we have.
And where are we at with facilities master plan?
Right now, we had a deadline a couple weeks ago for architect firms to submit for the facilities planning process. We received 5 applications of interest. We invited all 5 to come back with full proposals for taking the project on for us. I think it's in another 2 or 3 weeks we'll be reviewing all of that. But I want to remind everyone that facilities master planning effort is specific to City Hall and the 2nd Street water treatment plant.
It won't encompass.
It will
other
not encompass
facilities.
the library, no.
Okay.
Well, I think doing it now might let us get ahead of the game in the budget process too. And if we do come across an opportunity to earmark some funds for some of the value engineering next budget year, it's there rather than wait and then have to amend or come back the following year.
Robert?
I propose that we take $63,000 out of the current fiscal year contingency fund and fund the drawing project for the library expansion.
Let me weigh in here. If the council's of a mind to move in that direction, be aware that we'll need to come back to you next month with the official resolution transferring funds. But if you want to express your intent and give us direction to do that, that'd be helpful.
I'd agree with that.
General consensus, I'm okay with it.
All right.
I agree. I think it's great that you're also coming with some money in hand, too. So.
Yeah, that is true.
Very good.
The goal to bleed the fund down to zero, though?
I'm sorry, what?
Is your goal to empty that fund, your trust?
That was the intention. Ward Harriman donated that money back when we were building the library. If you've noticed, when you walk into the storyroom, it says Anita's Story Room. He donated that money in honor of his mother, and this money was just left over. And it was never his intent that it sit there all this time. And we've been using it for, we've been very, very gently with using it just because we hold on to our dollars, but it was not his intent. He wanted it spent, and this is fully in line with where and how he wanted it spent.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And again, Matt will be happy because one less thing. And we like to keep Matt happy.
All right, so we have a general consensus then. And you'll come
We'll
back
be
next
back in
month.
March.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Kendra.
Thank you.
And Matt. Next up is public comments. The council welcomes all respectful comments regarding the city's business. Citizens may address the council by approaching the microphone, signing in, stating their name and address for the record. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to provide the comments to the council. The council may take an additional 2 minutes to respond. The city clerk will accept and distribute written comments at a speaker's request. Is there anybody that would like to address council?
Mr. Mayor and Council, my name is Michael Smith. I'm with the Lebanon Elks Lodge. We are here tonight to further our request to open our Lebanon Elks Lodge. One of those requests is we have to have a liquor license through the OLCC. We have had a liquor license in Lebanon, Oregon since the 40s when we opened the first Lebanon Elks Lodge. It has continued on. We had it in a cocoon mode for approximately 4 years. We are hoping to reopen our Elks Lodge and go back to doing our normal business, raising money for children, veterans, and the elderly.
Very good, and it was approved earlier in our consent calendar.
Thank you very much.
Thanh you.
We appreciate it, and I will sign it.
It'll be nice to have you guys back in town.
Yeah.
We are so happy. We have been doing many things, and one of the events that we're actually working on as we speak, every year we have a state convention, and I have convinced our convention staff to look at coming to Lebanon, Oregon.
Oh, good.
Very
With a little
good.
bit of chance,
Excellent.
we'll bring over 1,000 elks to stay in motels in Albany, Lebanon, Sweet Home, and probably fill most of the RV parks. But we've made arrangements with the 1847, their motel and their convention center, and that will be our base for doing our business.
Nice.
But
Thank you.
Lebanon has been good to the Elks Lodge, and we try to respond in kind. So
Very
thank
good.
you very much.
Thank you.
Sir?
Is there any questions?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
I don't think
I
your
don't
mic's
think
on.
her mic is working.
Is it red? No, it's not red.
The light should be on red.
Red for go? I thought green is for go.
Red is hot.
We're a little
The
backwards.
mic's hot.
That's hot.
Is there a new location for the Elks Lodge?
We're at 41 West Maple Street. We sold our old building to the church.
Yep, I
And
saw
it was
that.
a wonderful thing because it got them to expand their church, and we didn't need that large a facility. So we have basically got a starter home here in Lebanon again. We
Nice.
started out originally above the J.C. Penney building back in the 40s, and that's where the Lebanon Elks Lodge started out. We now have a small facility that we are grooming to make an Elks Lodge. But it is in our goal to do, we hope to eventually acquire another piece of property, build a brand new building, and a recreational RV park.
Nice.
Because that will help. We've done that in many Elks Lodges around Oregon as well as the nation. And that finds to be a very good draw for members to come and spend their time, but it helps fund the overhead of the Elks Lodge.
You have a site and time-wise to open?
No, we're working on one thing at a time. We're getting this building up and going, rebuilding our membership, get things going, and then we'll start. We've talked to real estate people, and we've got them just looking because you never know. A piece of property can come up tomorrow, and we've got some money saved away. So, but that's our ultimate goal, is we'd like to have a nice small Elks Lodge with an RV park attached. But we're just in baby steps. Any other questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
very
lot.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, next. Did you want to come up? Sure, come on.
My name's Denise Oster-Haynes. I have something a little negative to bring up, and for that I apologize. I think I've spoken with a few of you about this, but it's really been bothering me. And when I was approached a few days ago, and I wish I could have gotten other people to come, but they didn't. With the time frame, they just couldn't come. There's a lot of people who use the Cheetah Lake, and it's a wonderful facility. We've gone to several events there, and we appreciate and enjoy it. But there's no event other than the one specific that allows music at midnight and 1 a.m. And that was incredibly difficult to deal with for our family and our neighbors to deal with as I've spoken with them. I personally, professionally and through volunteering, have managed events larger and smaller, and I would never, ever allow an event that I ran to affect the neighbors with such loud music at midnight and 1 a.m. I would request and propose limiting the hours of the Guitars Under the Stars to possibly 9:30 or so on a weeknight and 10 or 11 on a weekend night, or somehow alter their setup, change the equipment or something, so that people, some say I'm about 1.5 miles, some say I'm about 2 miles. Our house is pretty far away from the road, so I think that's a little closer to the far end. But even neighbors closer could very clearly hear the music, and it's not fair. It's not being a good neighbor to the people who moved out to the country and live nearby an event facility to have to deal with that. I want people to have fun. I enjoy having fun myself at that facility, but not at midnight and 1 a.m. I expect people to be quiet. That's my proposal, is that you limit the hours of the amplified music.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
But I'm pretty sure that we have code that addresses the decibel level at certain hours of the day and night. Mm-hmm. And I believe the chief can speak to this, if that's being monitored.
Can I answer what I was told when I called? I was specifically told by city staff they have a permit. They can have music at any hour, at any time, at the required noise level that they want. So if they wanted to do it at midnight, they can do it at midnight, is what I was told. And that's not fair to somebody who has to get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, there has to be rules and regulations, and you're not going to please everyone.
No, I don't, but I do hope that you guys would be more respectful to the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Yes, and it's probably a good time that I'm signed up as well to address her concern.
Sure.
So because of the feedback that we received,
introduce yourself, please.
I'm Jason Kripe, and I'm the event founder for Guitars on the Stars. Because of the event feedback that we received last year, we did remain below the 80 decibel level after 11 p.m. However, we're going to even take that further down this year because we do want to be a good community neighbor. So our amplified music will end at 11 p.m. and we will have acoustic music only, and there'll be an acoustic artist on Friday evening and on Saturday evening at a much lower volume. We're gonna try and keep it below 60 decibels. Last year, when we monitored from 11 p.m. on, we gauged it by, can you have conversation at a normal speaking level at the entrance of Cheadle Park? And so when we did get the one complaint, we got on the phone and assured them that we were actually standing there at the entrance with a Lebanon officer who was assuring us that we were well below those levels. Now, we do understand out in the country that the noise can carry, so that's why we're making the change. So we're going to be acoustic only in the evening time. I hope that helps, and there will only be the one acoustic artist each evening. Nope, not plugged in. An acoustic guitar. So, yes, so it will be through the PA system, but no louder than if we just played basic music. We do keep the venue open until 1 a.m. We have campers who are there, and so we serve food and drink until 1 a.m. But we will greatly monitor that noise level this year. We definitely want to be a good community neighbor. And we're easy to contact. I'll make sure that you have our contact information before we leave.
Your cell phone number so I can call you?
Yes, directly. Absolutely. Hopefully that answers the question about how we're going to proceed this year as it pertains to that noise issue.
I do have a statement, though. So
yes.
For me personally, this decibel thing is honestly pointless. We used to have a city ordinance that was all about decibel, and you couldn't even meet that criteria. So now the city ordinance reads that if it's beyond 50 feet and a person can hear it, then X, Y, and Z can happen. So the fact that you only got one complaint really is, for me, is of no value, because that just means one person made a phone call. It doesn't mean that anybody that's around there wasn't affected by it and didn't hear it. They just didn't call and complain about it. So, for me, it's a hard gauge to know when you say you only got one complaint, and I'm hearing, this woman saying,
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
That's why we made the change this year, because we understand that when you get one call, there was probably more than that. We also spoke to other local residents. Don Fountain at Lynn Gear, according to him, lives a stone's throw away, and he thought that we were well under what he would have expected. And so he thought we were very respectful. So there's always varying opinions, and that's why we respectfully decided to make that change this year based on just the one phone call. I hope that helps. One of the reasons I wanted to talk real quick before Gary makes his presentation is just to update you guys. We are going to be working with Downtown Association to help them provide music. We've secured a couple of artists for their first Friday celebrations. We will continue to be a chamber member. As you see, we spend money through the Lebanon Community Foundation on rentals, and we spend money to be on things like the Lebanon map through the chamber. So we will continue those things to be a good partner for the city. Our event that we went down to in California, the NAMM convention, which is the Music Manufacturers Convention, very well received. We represented Lebanon on the world stage, and we got great responses. And we've already picked up several sponsors from that trip, so the goal there was really put us right on track for where we want to be. We will also be submitting to Lynn County for a grant, and again to the Oregon Lottery. So our request for you guys to endorse an increase in tourism dollars, if met, goes a long way towards both Lynn County and the state through the Oregon Lottery seeing our application as valid this year. We got an endorsement from the mayor in the past for that request, and we actually got a good response from them last year, and they told us that we were very close to meeting their criteria. So we feel that we are right on track with all of those goals. And that's all I've got.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
How many nights is that event? Is it 3 nights?
2
This year's going to be 2.
2 nights?
Yeah, we had hoped to find a local sponsor so that we could do a free Thursday again. If so, we have artists that are willing to perform there, and that way we can open up the doors on Thursday for free to our community. But that will end at 11.
Anyone else like to address council? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the regular session. Request to waive penalties for unpaid water account, Matt Apkin.
Mayor and city council members. I was, I believe I first received a phone call from John, I'm going to say Ryger. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name or not. He communicated to me that he had purchased a property at the sale of a sheriff's auction. On the phone, he told me he wasn't aware of any liens on the property. Found out that there were approximately $7,000 or $5,617 in outstanding utility bills, and ask that we waive the fees and penalties associated with those bills. I told them kind of how the process goes, that anything over $1,000 has to go to council for their approval. In this time, I also went and started talking with some of the other cities in the areas, determining what kind of rates and what kind of what they do in similar circumstances. In his letter, he mentioned that the city of Sweet Home waives all fees and penalties on something like that. Usually what we come across is people purchase a property, they do so through a title company. The title company reaches out to the city. We respond with the lien amount for the property based on the water and other bills. And then through the closing process, they pay off any outstanding lien property. This situation, they didn't do that through the title company. He says that they contacted the city and that we wouldn't give them any information. I discussed that with my staff. They said they do usually give a roundabout figure. We've recently had some issues where customers felt like we were sharing information that was specifically theirs with others, so we've tried to not share information about accounts unless it's the owner of the account. So that kind of addresses that aspect. If you look at the charges that are outstanding, you've got $925 in outstanding water charges, $125 for sewer, and $101 for stormwater. The reason why the stormwater and sewer charges are less is because we can certify those amounts onto the county taxes. So every year when we determine what that amount is, we certify it to the county, we remove it off their account. It's paid with their taxes. We don't have the same opportunity based on the Oregon codes to do that with water, so that continues to stay on there. Under our current penalty structure, we charge a late fee of $5 plus 2% of the outstanding balance. Well, when you have things outstanding for years and years and years, not only are you paying a pretty good amount on your outstanding charges, but then also on the outstanding penalties that are also out there. So that's why you can see the penalties ended up being $4,414. I will tell you myself, I've gone back and forth on what the right thing to do on this is, because if you think about somebody who purchases a property through title, we don't ever have this situation. It's paid and we move on. So the penalties that have accrued are paid through that process.
So he's doing a cash.
So, well, like I said, he bought it at a sheriff's auction. So they often don't have very much time to find out this information. My staff has told me that when somebody calls, they will give it's in this range, $4,000, $5,000 range. I don't know that our current structure is set up in a way that I agree with, and as you can see in my report, we are going to be working on revising the overall utility policies. It's quite a process, and in coming in and dealing with some of the things I dealt with, we just haven't got there yet, unfortunately. But that is on my list of things to do in the coming year. And in doing that, I would also like to reach out to the community and allow them the opportunity to come in and share with me their opinions about how things are going. Give them that opportunity to share, so that way I understand their perspective of it. I also understand the city perspective of it. That way, as I kind of gather that all together, I can come back to you with reasonable policies to go forward with.
So it's not really fair that somebody going through the normal process would naturally pay these. On the other hand, if it meets the criteria of being a derelict property and it's been vacant for a long time, there is a genuine public benefit to getting that, to expediting that into somebody else's hands that may revitalize the property. A vacant property is not good for anybody in town. It's the old, what is that, the broken window syndrome. So that is a tough call. But that, in the end, if your analysis, that is what you say you'd like us to do, is to say, look, if it's been a vacant property and it goes up for auction, can we waive these fees and penalties in that circumstance, period?
And yeah, I mean, because it's that situation, and in my report I've said, I feel like let's charge them 1 year of penalties. After that point, we're looking at the water usage. If somebody hasn't used water in over a year, I will be looking to see if there's a way in our system. That's one of the other difficulties that we have is there a way in our system to, after a certain amount of time or a certain thing, to stop those fees from accruing? Oftentimes we don't know about these properties, that they're technically vacant, because we've had situations where owners will live in a property and they will figure out a different way to get water, whether it's buying bottled water or having a water truck on their property. I've heard different events have happened. And so when is the right time to stop charging those penalties versus not? It's a little convoluted when you don't really know what's happening at a property.
So if tonight, as a matter of course, we direct you to say, look, charge 1 year penalties in this kind of circumstance, and then take this into consideration as we're redoing all of the water fees, which I agree need to be rethought out top to bottom and rediscussed, rehashed, that would be helpful direction from us. And would help in this.
It would help in this, and I wouldn't necessarily say that we need to have this is what we want to do going forward. As you can see, this hasn't happened very often, at least on these late charges. We've had another one that just wanted their charges in general waived. But because it's at this point been an isolated instance, if we decide this is what we want to do on this one, going forward, if there's another one.
You set a precedent.
We do have that $1,000 threshold. If things are under $1,000, Gary and I talk about them and we might make a decision and go forward with it. It's when it becomes over $1,000 that we come to you guys and make sure that this makes sense.
And this seems to make sense. I just, to have a derelict building, I think just to write this off and just move on, and as Rebecca said, to work forward on the new policies and really get that honed in. But this makes sense to me.
Because I look at those auction things in the paper, and there's a lot of Lebanon properties that get sold at auction. Unfortunately, they've apparently been going through the title company. So this is a bit unusual. I think revitalizing it and getting it fixed up and back in the tax rolls is, I'm not really concerned that we charge him 1 year even. But
I make a motion we waive late fees in this case and reevaluate the process as Matt intends to.
I second penalties.
The penalties amount to $267.80 on his recommendation on the bottom.
Correct.
Okay.
If that's the thinking of the council, if we could have an official motion for the record for staff.
So move.
I think I did.
Yeah.
Jason just did.
I think you maybe don't combine the two. Have just a motion on the issue of waiving the fees, and then give direction separately to proceed the way Matt was asking.
So I would move that we waive the current late fees and reduce the late fee amount to the stated amount of $267.80.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to reduce the penalties to $267.80. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. And I'm going to call for a 5-minute recess.
Just leave it hot. They like hearing what's going on up here. It's like they're listening in on behind the scenes.
My sandwich was great.
Not good place.
Had the chicken wrap and avocado.
Oh, it's jail tour night.
I was on vacation.
Oh, really?
Someone sent me.
Yeah.
The public's dragging their feet, aren't they?
Maybe he did. I'm sure he did.
Gary?
Because I'm just going to bring it up to see if council's okay with finding out information. More efficient.
That's why we were just going to get it painted.
Yeah.
So we recommended a wrap.
Right now, it's not a lot of years. At least if there's,
Right.
I mean, I got about 2,000 from the two sponsors.
No, I appreciate that.
Is street around those?
Yeah. They're the only ones that can really do
Okay.
Right, at least that I have a chance.
Yes, chance of it. That's cool. All I see is
And we've got all those
whatever
bricks
is
and granite Snyder's coming
Yeah,
together.
Snyder, yep.
He's a good guy. Trying to get the stone
Well.
masons.
I've heard good reports about it.
Yeah.
There's not very many of them.
No, he has
Ian
some
Small.
experience.
Local guy.
Yeah, Ian Small, he's
Good to learn that.
He works, I think he's got a place up in
I know
Salem, but he grew up
it.
here.
Yeah.
I should be
Yeah.
receptive to hear new
But
things.
yeah, I guess I don't know where he was. Yeah, he was pretty tall. He said he didn't really play baseball.
He has a lot of military experience. Has just everything else. His right mentality.
Yeah, he seemed really nice.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to find.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have another one probably here before too long. They have one in the background right now. So
We haven't really talked about that as much. We've got
Gary's going to talk about
And we're putting new concrete seating area, viewing area at the top.
the way that is. Everybody sells there. Train them into
That way you want them to get people back to the
family does.
Broken considered video accessible? Is that pathway?
Yeah, I know. It's like I can only get up and out of this chair once or twice.
Are you improving seating there at all?
new bleachers.
He's on vacation?
Somebody told me to show up and
Right.
Yeah, I remember I seen about 40 people up there underneath the concession stand.
yeah, slow, cantilever. Not the visitor side, of course.
Oh, yeah, that would be.
But the new place is called Suffolk, so we're getting
So you just got this?
Yeah, I was like,
I mean, I don't mind if you drink if you want to sit aside. I'm good. No, I just didn't want you to. No, gosh, no, it's okay. I just didn't want you going. Oh, wait.
I'm glad you did.
Hey, me water, Sue water, right? Do we want to meet?
I always thought it'd be really cool if they would have like out of right field, kind of elevated stand section. Yeah, they set up tracks, but now the hedges are too high.
Yeah,
That'd be really cool. You know, you probably have a lot of students out there.
You probably don't know this, but you kind of need that door.
All the way around.
Is there a lot of money involved in cost?
it's the liability insurance. Anytime an
Yeah, I woke up one morning, it was gone.
liability, they have to take on responsibility if something should happen. You know,
Yeah, that might have been part of it.
That's the big problem. The soup kitchen wasn't doing it. They realized there's liability there, so they stopped. That's when the city stepped up and said, we'll provide the insurance, but we have to follow all these regulations set forth by insurance.
Every time I turn around, Paul's like, will you do this?
I brought a copy with me. So you
Oh,
know
yeah.
Our standard, we have to go through.
Oh, good.
No.
The rest of this meeting goes pretty fast,
To reach out and say,
I think.
this shouldn't be functioning.
Why isn't the committee?
Hope I didn't jinx it now.
Yeah, that's surprising.
It just threw me off.
That is.
And so then I'm like,
The meeting.
after doing that.
That kind of surprised me. I don't know. I'm not really involved in the committee.
like it's just there.
I know Dave Albany's.
I was looking at that mitigation plan online, and it was like, as I was reading it, and I whoa, like my little cursor was like this big on the scroll bar. And I'm going, whoa, okay, this is long. It was like 372 pages, like, or something.
Trying to get someone else to be the chair.
And, we'll reconvene the meeting.
Right. And that's the big problem.
That's a fun little community.
We'll reconvene the meeting. Next up is staff analysis on Guitars Under the Stars request from January 9th. Gary Marks, City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you will recall that at the last meeting on January 9th, that Jason Kripe, organizer of the Guitars Under the Stars event, appeared and made 3 requests to the council. And after he did that, I advised that you allow staff to take those requests back, come back with a staff report and present it to you. So here we are. The 3 things that Mr. Kripe requested was, first of all, that the city council would endorse, if you will, a grant through the Chamber's tourism grant program of $5,000. My experience with the Chamber is that they typically want to spread the money out as much as they can, so an amount of $5,000 is certainly not a typical amount that they would award. I think you could make an argument for an event of this magnitude, that I think last year they brought 4,000 people to the community, that it's promoting our community, it's promoting the musical arts, and it's bringing a lot of folks to town to conduct commerce with our businesses. You could make an argument that on this magnitude, perhaps a grant of that size is appropriate, but that's something for the council to decide. If you want to weigh in on that kind of an issue, council, to my knowledge, at least since I've been here, has not done that sort of thing. But that is the request in front of you. The second item that Mr. Kripe asked for was permission to put his event signage on city property beginning 30 days prior to the event. Guitars Under the Stars is a for-profit business. The city has, with an exception here or there for an organization like CARDVA, the Women's Shelter in Corvallis, we've allowed them to put up a yard sign here and there for their fundraising event. I have some concerns about opening up the gates and setting a precedent for for-profit businesses to advertise on public property. How do you define that? Where do you limit that? I'm not sure it's a good idea. Our sign code does allow any owner of property in the city to allow temporary signage. So it's certainly something the code supports you to do if you decide it's in the community's interest to allow that. We did make Mr. Kripe aware that there was an opening for our above the street banner on Oak Street, which is the banner by the maintenance shop, for the weeks just prior to his event. That if he was quick and got his reservation in, that he could have that prime advertising space. He indicated that he would do that, and he's given me the thumbs up that he did do that. So I know that is in the works, and that he will have some exposure in that direction. And then the third item that he requested was that the council grant a reduced rental rate for the Cheetah Lake facilities of $100 a day. Last year, the council granted a total waiver of all the fees, which last year amounted to $3,250. That was a 3-day event. So if the council were inclined to grant this year's request for a 2-year event, we're looking at $2,150 to waive. Again, the city policy, financial policies state that any amount to be waived for a fee of over $1,000 falls into the council's purview, and that you should do that only if you can find a public interest or benefit in waiving that fee. The argument that the council accepted last year was that it was promoting the musical arts, it was bringing folks to town, promoting Lebanon as an event location, and bringing about an additional commerce for our local businesses. So those are the 3 requests made. There were materials that Mr. Kripe passed out at the meeting in January that we've provided in the packet. If you have any questions of me, I'll be happy to respond to those. And I would suggest that maybe you just start with the top of the 3 and work your way through. So, what's the direction of the council?
Well, I have a question on this placement of signage. So, do we have a city ordinance here for posting of handbills on city property? Like, is it illegal to post handbills or any kind of signage on city property currently?
Yes.
I think Walt can address that.
The short answer is no, but you cannot put it on public signs. You cannot put it on, for example, telephone poles, that sort of thing. So utility facilities, no, but the city does have the option to post signs as they see fit.
I'm a little hesitant to open up that door for profit. Nonprofit to me seems a little different, but I just hate to see us go that direction. On that one particular item, it kind of annoys me when I do see people putting signs up on like Academy Square that are get your taxes done and things like that, and they end up having to get ripped up anyways. But it just kind of looks messy out there. And I'm not saying that his signs are messy at all. But I feel pretty strongly about that I just don't think on the public property.
I think there's enough private property that we can get some signage out there to help with that.
Yeah, I think if he can get the permission of any private property owner, then he's allowed to do that.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think there's an abundance of potential there to satisfy their need.
Okay.
It is I agree with Gary's sentiment of the precedents that you set. Then because there's a lot of other potential for very good things, events, businesses that the city could come to us for a
Similar request.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, is that pretty much a consensus on that?
On the signs?
On the signs?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that
okay.
at all.
How about the tourism grant?
I think that sets a poor precedent for us weighing in on a situation where we give the chamber the finances. I would be more inclined to consider looking at the available tourism dollars and seeing if there was some additional funding available in that route from our room tax dollars.
But that's what that money is. That money is given to the chamber.
I understand.
For that purpose.
Additional that we have discretion
But the additional
that we might
do
have.
not give to the chamber.
And that also sets a precedent
But then that-
for tax dollars going to,
Special events.
yeah, or people saying, look, we know you give this to the chamber, but we're coming to you, and we're back to kind of square one on that issue.
Yeah, the whole point of having the chamber manage that fund was that it got it off the floor of the chambers, and it pushed it to a third party who was an independent third party, really, who also was involved in wanting to draw things to Lebanon. So I have no desire to go back to that, and I have no desire to endorse anything as a council as far as the chamber grant goes, and I also don't have any desire to give more any discretionary tourism funds either.
Now, you had written a letter of support for the event.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think if they're seeking, he mentioned seeking lottery dollars or seeking other dollars, because I think it's an event worthy of us acknowledging that in some official capacity that, look, we're glad to have this event here. We're really happy that they've chosen Lebanon and that they're supporting Lebanon, and so if that is of value coming from us to say, we really like this event here as a body, or having you do something like that, if that's helpful, I'm in favor of that kind of motion.
Would you like an endorsement letter, Jason?
Regarding our application.
Just in general, just something.
Yes, absolutely. That would be wonderful. And
because I think we did one last year, didn't we? 2018, yeah.
I do appreciate everything you guys are saying.
Okay.
I endorse it. I'm in favor of it coming, but quite frankly, I'm kind of growing. I've reached my limit of the city becoming like this silent partner and the coming back and the this and that. For me personally, I'm kind of fed up with it, and I just want to see the event either succeed on its own with our support as we would support any other event that rented our park space, or potentially not be feasible, and that's fine too. There's a lot of great ideas that don't end up working. So I don't think it's our position to get our hands too deep into this event each year after year after year.
I just think there's a tourism committee specifically for this through the chamber, and getting involved in how they make their decisions. This is something that should be best left for that committee.
I kind of feel like we'd be stepping on our toes.
I
We
agree.
said, here, you're this committee, but then, on this thing, we're going to, say it's 5,000 instead of whatever they deemed.
at the expense of other things that might have gone, they have a finite amount of money that committee is working hard to evaluate where that goes. I appreciate, like I said, all of their time and energy and commitment that takes that off our plate and really focuses on what that money should be used for.
So where do we as a city, with any proposed event that's coming to our community for bringing tourism and economy to our businesses, where do we exploit our interest and support rather than the chamber and the tourism dollars?
I think historically it's been in waiving park fees. I think it's primarily been in waiving park fees.
To get them going.
Yeah, which is part of this request.
Because we are supporting other events with dollars.
Nonprofit or other for-profit events we support with dollars?
No, not that I know of. Nonprofit. But it's a culture of supporting events for Lebanon. And are we always going to have all nonprofits? Probably not.
I think one of the things that I was reading in the Chamber's guidelines that I really appreciate is when you have a for-profit, you have a board of directors and you have maybe a mission, and I appreciate everything you've done, but you could be bankrupt and not pay your vendors. We had a for-profit event that was fairly local that failed to pay vendors and had some major issues. And we don't want to be caught up in that either. Not that it couldn't happen with a nonprofit, but I don't know. It's touchy.
Go ahead, Wayne.
I mean, this is an event that's not made any profit yet. And
so you are kind of nonprofit so far. So far,
we've put $163,000 of our own money into building this event in my hometown, where I went to grade school, middle school, and high school. We're putting our dollars into our town. We have not profited one penny. The reason we structured as a for-profit is the same reason that you saw the Downtown Association saying that they had a hard time sustaining any kind of meaningful involvement. Now, once we get to a point where we actually have a profit, we will have a staff that is dedicated because we have those funds. We will also be an entity that can continue to support things like the Downtown Association, who are a nonprofit. And even though we have never made a single penny, we still are putting money into their First Friday celebrations.
Okay, Jason, I need to stop you there.
Yeah. Okay. And I appreciate all of that, and I appreciate the event. I really do. It's the city's involvement and our level of involvement is and our level of tax dollars and our level of that's my concern. So
for the new members of the council, what is the total that so far the city has waived or put forth to help this event along?
It was $3,000 last year, I think, in park fees.
Yeah,
and
$3,250.
$3,250 in park fees. And the time before, I don't know if there was any.
No, sir.
I didn't think there was any.
The previous time
Yeah.
And the first year.
It was cheaper. The foundation last time.
wasn't the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last year was the first time for the city.
So it's 3,200.
32. Thank you.
So it sounds like a consensus, and tell me if I'm wrong, that we're not in agreement of doing talking to the chamber or letting them know that we endorse it at $5,000. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And then lastly, waiving the park fees. Discussion on that.
I kind of agree with Gary in the sense of if the way the city can support it is that's the way to do it, is that we just don't charge for our facility.
in perpetuity
Yeah.
or
Year to
just year to
This-
year? We have this discussion
I think
every
for
year.
this year.
I think for this year, I agree. At some point, we have to kind of stop. But I do see, I mean, he's asking three requests here, and this is one way, in my opinion, that it's a way for us to support without sort of giving funds.
From his reported numbers, he's grown each year up to 4,000, it says here. And, if you're going to continue to grow this event, I would assume at some point, sir, you're going to turn a profit and be able to pay these fees in the future.
Absolutely. As you try to grow a nationally known event, you spend money in the early time in advertising to reach a national audience, that it's not feasible to return in tickets.
Okay, Jason, I need to cut you off because you're not on the mic, and this isn't a discussion with the audience. So on the park fees, I'm kind of in favor of that. I think that would be another help towards that. This would be the second year that we would do that. They're still paying a minimal, isn't it, $100 or something a day?
$100 a day.
$100 a day. And I think that would at least be a token to show that we are interested, because, that is part of our strategic plan, is to bring tourism and to bring people into our community, and it does, and it has been. I want to see it grow. It would be great. But again, like we've talked about before, I don't want to just keep feeding it.
I'm curious, and I wish Jason was here. I'm curious what the staff impact is for this event.
Jason's here.
Jason is here.
Not Williams, you mean?
Williams, yeah.
He's back there.
No.
Nope.
Oh, sorry.
But
sorry, Kyle.
There's impact.
Holy Kyle.
The city's had no impact because the foundation's continuing to do the events.
So city staff is not dealing with this at all. It's all foundation impact then?
Volunteers. Me primarily.
I could see doing that again one more year, and just knowing that we're going to grind you every year on that until, and we're going to grind, and we're going to be like, dude, what, when, every year, and possibly say no next year. But I could see doing that this year.
I'm a no this year.
What, a no?
No.
Okay. Park fees?
I'm a yes to waive.
Park fees, yes.
Waive.
Okay. Looks like the consensus would be to waive. Do we need a vote on that?
Consensus.
I think you're on the record.
Okay, on the record is a consensus. Okay, the consensus is that we'll waive the $2,150 in park fees for the Guitars Under the Stars. Thank you. Next up, endorsing Lynn County's Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan, Walt Wendlowski. Please don't go page by page.
There's only 198. No, come on. Well, it wasn't as bad as the 600-page appendix to the TSP. Okay.
Can we keep these, pull these from our book and keep it? I wanted to, in lieu of printing it myself, I wanted to hang on to
you are
this for sure.
certainly more than welcome, or if you need extra copies, I could email to you. First of all, congratulations to the new members. This is my first meeting with the new city council, and it is much to my embarrassment. I have the worst case of cut and paste that I've ever seen on any report I've ever done. You have the correct heading and title, but you have a different staff report that's associated with this. So I want to say the staff report is sideways, however, the resolution is correct, okay? All that I'm bringing before you today is very simple matter. Lynn County has developed a natural hazard mitigation plan. It was actually multi-jurisdictional. The city participated in this program. I believe you were part of it, and also Rob Emmons, former city engineer. And what this does is simply endorse the plan. We have no particular requirements at this point. We're not obligated to pay money to do things. But the important thing of being part of this plan is that we cannot develop pre-disaster planning or post-disaster relief and obtain federal funds without adopting a mitigation plan. There's still plenty of room for the city to go ahead and think about different things to do, and I'm sure that we'll be looking at this a little bit more in the future. But my only request this evening is that the city endorse the plan. and then we are eligible for federal funds. And with that, I will do my best to try to answer anything I can. The only thing the plan does not cover is volcanoes.
I saw that. Okay, well.
So there's reference to an exhibit. Can we assume that the exhibit is part of the resolution?
Yes, the exhibit is the natural hazard.
Oh, okay.
Everyone has it in their book except for
it's this.
All the council has it in their book
council
because
has
it's this big.
I got you.
It's in your gift bag.
Save paper, that's fine.
Yeah, there we go. You're just the attorney.
All the important people that got the bag. All the people that got the bag.
The people who have to endorse it.
I did not see Albany on here. Is there a reason for that?
I think what they're doing, they were part of the project team, but I think they're doing their own separate plan.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I ask a lot of questions about what we're going to do in different emergencies, so I'm glad to see direction or moving in the direction of risk mitigation for different natural disasters.
This gives us a framework, and I think that's the most important thing. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can take this basic framework and go forward.
Enter our little chapter, isn't there, like there's blank places
Right.
where
So this is our chance.
localities to enter their own.
Right.
Okay, I'll have the city attorney read the resolution.
A resolution adopting the Lynn County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan, resolution number 2019-1.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2019-1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The resolution passes. Thank you all.
My pleasure, and I will be darn sure my next report to the council is correct.
Yeah, that 2018 date really threw me when I read that.
Alzheimer's disease.
Bad cut and paste.
Next up, city manager's report, Gary.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my report is in the packet. What I'd like to talk to you about tonight is actually not in this report, and that would be police staffing. For those of you who were in elected office during the last budget process, you may recall that Frank and Matt and I reported to you at that time that in addition to the one officer position that we were adding in this current year budget, that we would report back to you mid-year after looking at how revenues had come in for the first 6 months and advise whether or not we felt that we could add yet another position partway through the year. So Matt and Frank and I have done that. I'm happy to report to you that we feel confident that we are in a good position in our general fund right now to go ahead and do that, should the council desire to move forward in that direction. So if that's something that you're interested in seeing us do, we would be happy to bring to you a resolution at the next meeting in March to transfer the funds necessary to give the chief the direction to go ahead and begin his hiring process.
Yes.
Yes, please. Yes.
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 I thought you'd say that. So if there's anything else in my report that you'd like to talk about, please address that to me. Otherwise, that's my report for tonight.
Thank you, Gary. Items from city council?
I have an item.
Yes, go ahead, Karen.
So back when myself and Michelle were just council-elect, we were privy in the audience. Republic Services was here talking about different topic, and we had someone that came forward and kind of talked about people dumpster diving, and where I had come forward and talked about that. It's no secret that I work for the Corvallis Police Department, and we have a city ordinance there that allows officers, when we come across that it's a misdemeanor crime if they're dumpster diving. So I contacted my former agency and Republic Services, and I would like to have, sort of propose for our council to see if we can direct Trey and Gary to sort of look at that more formally. The only thing that has to be done is that we already have an agreement with Republic Services, and
they have one with Albany, and they also have one with Corvallis, and they basically give the police departments the authority, hey, you're acting on our behalf, and so anything that's going on with our, major dumpsters or the individual garbage cans, that, we give you the authority to act on our behalf. And it's in their best interest, because if somebody's dumpster diving and gets hurt, then they're on the hook for that because it's their dumpster. So they like that. Then we can also adopt language in the city ordinance to make it an actual crime instead of just a violation. And I'm not sure if council understands the difference between a violation and a crime. But at least the crime aspect of it, it allows an officer to be able to act on a complaint from a resident. Instead of having to personally see that violation, they can take probable cause from the complainant. And it just gives them more authority, more tools in their tool bag to be able to deal with something. Not that I expect, that we're going to have the garbage police going along, but it is a bother for people, and they don't like people coming in, because people are not just looking at the dumpsters, or also looking, if they have open garage doors, or looking, and it's just that potential. And I'll speak for my own self. We had something similar happen on our street, and and I don't like it. So, but I've heard other people come to me and talk to me about that and complain, and then we just happened to have a citizen who talked that night. So I said, let me look into that. Let me pull information. So I would just
They can get personal information. Well, if you're silly enough to just put personal information out there, social security number, medical bills, and there's a lot of identity theft that can happen from people doing that too.
Even credit card offers with your name on it.
Yeah, credit card offers. There's a lot of.
Yeah, and not everyone is diligent about, shredding those things, and they think, if I put this in this bin, then
it's gone.
It's safe, right?
And I kind of went back and I looked at the laws that, I mentioned last time where, there's no expectation of privacy, and that's still the case, but all those cases arose from when you would actually put out garbage bags. There wasn't a receptacle that was owned by somebody else. And I think that's the distinction, and it makes a lot of sense because they can control that because it's somebody's property. Your property goes into somebody else's property, it now becomes their property, so there is an expectation of privacy.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a consensus then to have staff look at that and bring that back to us.
What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's a good idea. Personally, right as it stands right now, there's nothing more frustrating than when we get a call, hey, there's some guy going through our garbage, and we really can't do much about that other than just kind of shoo them off. But I like the idea. It gives us more tools, more teeth in the fight, and anytime we can make people of that nature accountable, I'm in support of it.
Staff supports this.
And who knows, the deposit might go up to $25, and, I might go die.
Oh, for
I think, and like she mentioned, not only are they dumpster diving, but they're also looking into other things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like I say, anytime we can deter that type of behavior, I'm in support of it.
Okay. Consensus, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead with that, Gary. Any other items from council? We have the jail tour immediately after. Please meet over at the jail. And next up, we have a second time for public comments. Is there anybody that would like to address council? Okay. Next, items from press. Any questions from press? Nope. Next scheduled meeting, we have executive session February 27th at noon, our March 13th regular session, and then we also have the elected official training work session on March 27th at noon. With that, we're adjourned.